Why do we as mortgage professionals or people in any career, you become to a place in your career where people look to you as an expert?
In 2003, when I went to AA, there's a comparison they used in a book. They say we're like survivors of a shipwreck on an island. And one of the things that I think is a misconception in mortgage is we think that people don't want to let us talk to them and run their credit because they're not ready. We have a lot of people who are fearful. They're dealing with negativity. People are starting to feel the recession. People have a lot of shame. It's really the beauty of community, and the way that I think we were designed to live is that we borrow from each other's strengths. Hey, I'm Chris Lamm. This is the Money Hole Podcast. I'm so excited today to have a good friend of mine, Leah Roadrunner. Leah Roadrunner, she's a mortgage lender, but she's so much more than that. I've known her for a long time. She's just one of these powerful ladies who's been through a lot of crazy stuff, and a lot of people from the outside don't know her would look at her and maybe see this really successful, incredibly powerful lady. But man, this lady's got a story, and the way that she got here wasn't easy. So I think you're going to get a lot of tactics out of this. I'm super excited to have her. Please make sure to like, subscribe, download, leave comments. We do respond to them. And I appreciate you so much. Tune into this episode. Leah, thanks for being here. It's been a long time coming.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
No, I'm excited to have you here because, well, for so many reasons, but we've known each other a long time, and now I've got the privilege of us getting to work together. And I knew that one day it would probably happen, but we just kind of had a good friendship. I knew you before you got into mortgage lending when you were in real estate. Mm-hmm. I know your family. I know your husband. I tell people all the time that I think your husband's an angel. I know that you may not think that sometimes, but he's just an incredible guy, man. I'll never forget. There was a day, being a cancer survivor, like you had cancer too, right?
No, mine was a little different.
Okay, well, we'll get into that. So being a cancer survivor, a year ago, I had some back issues, and they found a pretty big mass, and I was like, I'll never forget. I was taking my son to his first Shasta County fair.
Yeah.
I was so excited. Mom's out of town with the daughter, and I'm like, this is going to be an incredible time for him and I to bond. And on the way there, I see the hospital calling my phone, and I've seen that all too many times to know that like they don't call at this time unless there's something important.
PTSD.
And I got the bad call, like, hey, we have some real serious concerns. So long story short, I go into the hospital, I get operated on. Luckily, there was nothing there, but there was this friendly guy walking around the operating room whistling, and it seemed like everybody there loved him.
Yeah.
The nurses, the doctors, the most friendly guy in the room. And I was coming out of sedation, and I just remember, hey, Pork. And he came over there, man, it was such a gift. He was so comforting, and he was praying for me. And so I have so much respect for your husband, but I got a lot of respect for you too. So you're a mortgage lender, and you're so much more than that. You're involved in politics. We were involved in a nonprofit together. And one of the things I love about you, Leah, is you live your life to change the world and to change people's lives. And that's really who you are. It comes across in everything you do. And I think we have a lot of alignment there. But I would just love for people listening, because I think people get so much out of stories. Like, how did you end up here today? Like, I know that's a big question, but like,
yeah. It's funny because it is a big question, right? But I think 6 years ago was probably around the time my life really changed in a lot of ways, in a lot of aspects. Like, I think part of you, I become a mom really young. You put your head down, and I'm like, I'm going to make good humans. And I have 5 of them, and they are good humans. And 20 minutes ago, the last one got her permit at the DMV, and
nice.
Life is good.
That's your youngest?
Yes, my youngest.
Yeah.
And so 6 years ago, I got into the mortgage side of things. And that same year, I did a thing called Leadership Reading. And I think what Leadership Reading did for me is it's a project where you meet everyone who runs the different parts of your city for 9 months. And for me, I went, oh, these are all people like me, and I can do this too. It just changed a perspective for me. It was a paradigm shift. So that's actually where I got into politics and realizing these are people and I can influence things. It's where I got into, that's the year we started Catalyst Mentoring with our friend Aaron Hayes, and realized that to me, the way to change a city is to change it from the ground up, and that's from our children.
Yeah.
And by changing their lives, we can change the trajectory of an entire city and generation upon generation.
Yeah.
And so I got involved in those three things. And then I just started, getting involved in more and more. And then you learn where you have to tap out and where you have to start saying no. But I think those are the things that influenced me, and that I started to see, like, what if I could get 20 other people to pick one thing they were passionate about? That's how you change a city. That's what you do, is like, if each person picked one thing, can you imagine the fire you could start, right? So I think that's what happened for me. And then, finishing raising those amazing kids, and just kind of, now it's spurred on to my husband, and he's doing all kinds of things too. But yeah, he's a treasure, though. Thank you for saying that.
He really is. Yeah. He's an incredible guy. So okay, so that's cool. So 6 years ago, your eyes were opened to the influence that people can have when they, I'm using my own language for it, but when they focus on things they're passionate about in a city like Redding to making a difference. And we've seen that here. I mean, Redding, I always tell people that always challenge me living in Redding when they live in Tennessee and Florida. I always tell them that the worst thing about Redding is it's in California. But if you ever came here, you would see why I stay here, because it is a very special place. And the people here are very special people. I mean, literally some of the most incredible people I've ever met in my life live here. And I know you feel the same way.
That's also because we've created a lot of relational equity. We're invested in these people, right? We have a common goal. Like we have taken that time to know their story. We've taken that time to, like, see who they are. But and that same thing is how you realize, like, from the top to the bottom, these are people. So anything they can do, you can do. Like, there's no stopping you, and I don't know. Yeah. So I agree. Redding has a very special place in my heart. I mean, I, moved here to raise my kiddos, but I wouldn't move anywhere either. We traveled. We did Arkansas, we did Kentucky, we did Tennessee, been to Florida.
I remember.
Spent time in Texas. Yeah.
I knew
actually,
you
our
weren't
friends,
moving, by the way. I knew you weren't moving.
No. Well, I mean, part of my story is helping someone run for governor, right? And so when we were in Tennessee, I got a call from my friend, and she's like, so we can't pack up our 1,000 acres, and so you're staying because you're going to help him run for governor. And I said, okay, friend. And the truth is, to me,
that's Gavin Newsom, right?
Oh yeah, it was Gavin. Totally. No, my friend Brian Daly, who really nailed it. He did really, really well.
He did really well.
Yeah. It was a David against Goliath, right?
Yeah. I would use a different analogy, but I won't go there.
We won't go there.
Yeah.
We're going to be kind today.
Yeah.
But all that to say, as in all the other things we just talked about.
Yeah.
If we don't hold the line in California, it doesn't matter where you go. There's nowhere you can run. There's nowhere you can, if you won't stand for who you are and what you believe, where you are, it really doesn't matter, right?
It doesn't.
You got to do it right where you are. Yeah.
Yeah. And I have, I've been a lot more open on my podcast and the things I do publicly. And honestly, Leah, you've been a big influence to that, because I had so many people in business that said, stay out of this, stay out of that.
Yeah.
And I just was like, I don't think that's the right thing anymore. I don't think because if everyone's silent and we just keep allowing things to go the way they go, I mean, we're going to get into housing and mortgage because it's all directly tied together. 100%. But it's like people always, you would hear these people say, like, I don't really get into politics. It's like, well, then do you not work? Do you not pay bills? Right. Do you not? Inflation has a lot to do with politics.
Right.
Housing has a lot to do with politics.
100%.
Everything you do in your life is impacted by politics.
They're government-backed loans, right?
We're not totally. We're not talking about, you don't have to talk about the characters involved if you don't want to, but we have to talk about, like, what's happening right now in 2024. And I just got done having a conversation about it. It is unlike anything that we've ever seen. It isn't unlike anything that hasn't happened in history.
No.
Which is part of the reason why a lot of
history's cyclical.
Totally. But it isn't something we've seen before. And I know for you and I know for me, like, part of our whole purpose is to try to help people wake up and see things. And a big part of that for us, because of what we do for a living, is helping people create wealth and using tools like a mortgage to do that.
Right. And I think part of the danger in saying we don't want to have the conversation, it creates even more division.
It does.
Instead of bringing people together, right? And when I get to talk to clients who maybe don't have the same sided view as me, and I go, well, the current administration, this is how they see loans and what they want us to do different. I'll just say it that way, right? Whether I agree or disagree doesn't matter.
It's just the facts.
But here's the rule that came down, and here's how it's affecting what I can give to you. And sometimes I think the thing I've really come to realize in politics is the laws they pass, the rules they pass. They do it for a reason they think is kind or a reason they think will do something well, but they're so high up. They're so high up that they don't know. They're so disconnected. They don't realize how that's going to trickle down and really play out. Let's take simple one, Prop 19 about taking the tax basis with you over a certain age. Should be simple. But then you call your county offices, they don't even know how to implement it.
Right.
So that's and there's federal ones even higher, right? But so you take it and you go, okay, so this is how it was meant, but it's not how it's being applied. Nor can I apply it that way because this and this rule. And so at the end of the day, whether we're on whichever side, we have to talk. We have to talk. And it's actually why I'm passionate about the people that I help represent in Assembly and Senate, because they're two of the most like-minded people in that way that I've ever met. That they work across every aisle. I think it's very easy in this society to think that we can't work across the aisle and still have our standards, but we absolutely can. We can be strong in what we believe, but open and honest with other people.
You know where I learned that, Leah, was when I got sober. In 2003, I went to AA. And I've been sober 20 years. And when I went to AA, you got all these people. There's a comparison they use in a book. They say we're like survivors of a shipwreck on an island. Like we just went through this traumatic experience and now we're trying to live together. It don't matter what you believe. Like I'm going to help you and you're going to help me. And so you have all these people who are trying to get sober. You got Buddhists, you got Hindus, you got agnostics, atheists, Christians, and all these different people. And the Christians, they got to rethink their spirituality because whatever they had before wasn't enough for them to get sober. There was holes in what they believed. There was holes in what they believed. And the common goal is that we're here to help each other and have unconditional love and acceptance and help each other to achieve this new lifestyle of being less selfish, helping others, because that's actually the key to happiness. And so I went on these camping trips with people I would have never thought of mixing with in my life. And we start sitting around fires and we start having conversations. And at the end of the conversation, I realized we're not actually that different.
No.
We have way more similarities than we have differences. I love you. I don't need you to change. We may not agree on everything, but man, you're my brother. And that unity is really special in some places. And so for me, that's been such a gift because I can listen to someone who has a lot of different ideas and I don't usually get all heated and upset about it. I might not agree with them, but I always try to find the similarities that we have because the thing is like if we don't learn to connect with each other, to your point, then we'll never have a chance at helping someone having a revelation or seeing things from a different perspective because we're staying silent and we're not having the conversation. And so in many ways, directness and honesty is actually kindness.
Yes.
And the opposite of that is not kindness. And that's the biggest lie that I've been seeing that's hurting us as a people the last,
I mean, those
10
people
years.
don't need to try out for American Idols that their mama didn't tell them they can't sing, right? Kindness wasn't nice. Totally making light of what you're saying. But I love the way you just said that because what I used to tell Megan Daly was, I wish we were going to war. And she'd say, what do you mean? When 9/11 happened, what happened?
It was beautiful.
It was beautiful.
You had everyone
I wish
hugging
we were
each
going
other,
to war because
American
everyone
flags.
would come together.
Yep.
And I kept saying, but why does it take that? Why does it take that? So what you just said was a little different. Like you survived something together. Let's get through this.
It was a war of the soul.
Either way, something had to happen, right? But people I heard this the other day, like people are hard to hate close up, lean in. And I'm like, that is absolutely the truth, right? Because that's what you did in those circumstances. You leaned in, right? And I think mortgage, you're right. It all circles back for me because when I hear their stories, it's not numbers anymore. I want to figure it out. I want to help them, right? And it's why I'm passionate about our city because like if I want to tell you to invest your dollars, spend money here every month, raise your kids here, I want to know darn well I helped in every way I could to make this the best place to do so. But I love too, leadership writing. The reason I loved it is we take a class of 30 diverse people and stick them in camp together for 3 days. What you said about like the campfire and the like, okay, we have all these differences, but in your case, you were trying to recover. In our case, we're like, we all care about a city.
Yep.
And we're very different. Can we put everything else aside and can we figure that out?
Yep.
Right? We can
totally.
do that.
Yeah. I think the other thing that happened for me around that time that's a huge gift is I realized I didn't know anything. You know what I mean? It's like my best thinking got me in AA. And I didn't have a driver's license. I had a 580 credit score. You know what I'm saying? It's like I was not on a winning streak. So I had my ego
and getting
smashed.
help is okay.
Totally. And it's like,
powerful.
and I think the greatest gift that I've had in my career, in my life, is I haven't lost that. Like, I mean, I have an ego just like anyone, but I have friends that keep it in check. But for the most part, I've carried that curiosity and that realization, like just because I believe something doesn't mean it's true. And so I'm willing to listen to other people because I've had my life change because someone's poked holes in something I believe. And I realized, well, that's not actually how God is. That was a lie that I believe my whole life has not been helping me, or that's not really how that person is. Or when someone offends me, I make excuses for why they're acting like that. I'm like, they must have something going on in their life. They must have some brokenness that never healed. And you're less offendable.
Or maybe you're in a season.
Totally.
Like, I mean, I think I shared with you, like recently, I've just been in a season of pruning and change. And you're like, ouch, ouch, ouch. And I'm like, I would just like to hole up right now. But I found my insides, I felt negative. That's not normally me. I'm a pretty positive person. Not Pollyanna, not fake, but pretty positive or hopeful, or we can figure this out, or we can do this. And I was not feeling that way. So like the fact that those are the moments where you say, help, I need help. And you have to reach outside of yourself.
What does that look like for you? Because I want to go there for a minute, because I think that right now, we have a lot of people who are fearful. They're dealing with negativity. People are starting to feel the recession. There's a lot of people have a lot of shame. I mean, you and I, we deal with a lot of people who come to us. And one of the things that I think is a misconception in mortgage is we think that people don't want to let us talk to them and run their credit because they're not ready. The truth is, a lot of people have shame because letting people see their finances is a very vulnerable thing, because for a lot of people who may be excellent in every other way, this is a place in their life where they might have some chaos. And I think that that's something that we as mortgage lenders could be a lot better with. I know you're good with that, and I try my best, but I think it's important people hear, like, what do you do when you're feeling like those intense emotions, fear, frustration, anger, and you're like, this is not who I am, and I don't like how I'm showing up at home.
Right. Well, there's a few like things I've already put in place years ago. I had a coach, Todd Screama, Todd.
Love Todd.
And one of the things he said to me was, hey, young lady, you're a lot like me. You're a very high nervous person. You have a lot of anxiety. And he's like, I want to help you get through that faster than I did in this business. I got to give that to him. And I still talk to Todd. But he had me set up a phone call that I have every Tuesday morning. That's why you see me sitting out in my car sometimes, finishing on the phone. I have a spiritual mentor. I call her my spiritual mama of 30 years almost. Wow. I met her when I moved here to Redding, and met her at Little Country Church. She was in charge of the women's ministries. And I walked in one day on a Sunday and just said, I need to talk to somebody. And her husband found her. And a lot of years. She knows all the things. And she moved to Montana recently. And so Tuesday mornings, I have my call with Debbie. And just to talk with someone who knows me, right? And like can see me and will be honest with me. There's times she'll be like, stop that, or you're being rude, or hey, she'll just say it like it is. That's the kinder thing. And I'm like, oh, you're right. She knows my husband. She knows all the things. So I have some things like in place, right? People who will call me out. I have a group of women every other Wednesday we meet. We call ourselves the Pit Crew. We're all hardworking women. We're on the road, and like it's like the get off, get your tires changed, check in, get back on the road. So we call it Pit Crew. But we've been praying together for 6 years. You've interviewed some of those women on here, and they're some of the most powerful women. And they made me believe in myself. That group started around 6 years ago too. Wow. Funny thing. But so I have some things set in place, but then it still can get off the rails, right? So I think the most powerful thing I've learned is to not wrap myself up in it and to learn to reach out. I have a friend, Aaron Hayes, I call. I mean, my husband is my number one. We've done the hard work. We've done the hard work.
How long you guys been married?
17 years.
Cool.
Yep. And we're both stubborn and not going anywhere.
Yep.
and blended families are not for the faint of heart. A lot of things we've been through are not for the faint of heart. So we have each other's back. But even in that, sometimes you just need outside help. So I think that, and I think too, we've talked about how, to me, my kids tease me all the time, Mom, that's your answer to everything. Go get outside.
Yeah.
Go for a hike. Go running. Keep yourself in shape. Don't let that. And I don't mean like that being skinny or perfectly fit. That's not what I'm saying. What I mean is like physically fit, that you're taking care of your body, so it gets the endorphins it needs, so that it gets, because that's an actual thing. Like in mortgage, my friend Erin Resner said it this way one time. She goes, oh, she runs Dutch Bros, right? Yep. So she's like, in mortgage, you are the cup of coffee. And I was like, oh, we're the product. So how much more do we need to take care of us?
Yeah.
Like we're the product every day, right? Like we're the one they want to talk to. To your point, we're the ones who try to give compassion and transparency to our clients. And sometimes that can be wearing on us. You shared with me, you met with 11 people yesterday. And I went home and I'm like, Chris has to be exhausted. Because if you're like me, I put it all out there for my clients, and I'm transparent with them. Like, hey, I went through bankruptcy years before I was in mortgage. Yep. Hey, I have 5 kids. At Christmas, I spend a little more than I should. Hey, it's okay.
Yeah.
You can't have done me, and there's nothing I'm going to see that I'm going to judge you for.
Yep.
But when you tell 11 people that in a day, or you help 11 people get over the obstacle of fear and shame and walk them through what it looks like and talk to them about 8% interest rates and high insurance, and it's still safe to buy a house, it can be exhausting because it's
for sure.
Right?
Oh yeah, totally. In fact, early in my marriage, my wife would always say, how was your day? And I would always say to her, you don't want to know. And I felt like there was this, I was protecting her because I go to war every day. I'm trying to create a life where you don't have to go to war. I go to war, I go home, and I honestly don't want to relive it. And what I know now, after lots of counseling and conflict, is she didn't need to know the play-by-play. She needed to know the emotions I felt.
Yeah.
And so the connection codes has been really helpful for us. I tell her, I was afraid today when this happened. I was angry when this happened. I was joyful when this happened. I was hurt when this happened. So we go through this wheel, and it's like by the end of it, I've processed my emotions. We feel connected, and I didn't have to talk about the 11 appointments. I just talked about the things that happened and the feelings around them. You could do it in 2 minutes. It's one of the best things I've ever done in my life. But yeah, this is a business that is not for the faint of heart. And you see that now. This is a market where only the strong are going to survive, and when I think about you, and the reason why I'm so grateful for you, and I think we're connected, is because you are a freaking resilient beast of a lady. I'm serious. Like you know
what it takes to be resilient, right? You
Yeah.
have to go through some stuff.
Well, yeah. And that's why I have you on the podcast, because I think people need to hear that. Like I said, people look at you, you've had a lot of success in a short amount of time. You're still successful in a very tough market where most mortgage people aren't. And you just did 75 hard while you were transitioning companies. You've had incredible health challenges like I have. And yet you still show up and put it all on the field every day. And I think that is one of the biggest lies for people when they think about what it looks like to be successful, is they think it looks like it's easy. You're always happy. And you just said this the other day. I'm stealing your line. You said, what did you say about it?
But which part?
About being successful.
Like it looks great on Facebook, but it's absolutely, but then there's the reality behind it every time. Yep. And I mean, I love the people that do the transparency post and stuff, but I don't know how necessary. I just think most of us should understand that.
Yeah.
That's not everything.
No.
That's not the complete story, right? And the more transparent we can be, the better. Like I said, like 17 years of marriage, I love that man so much. It has been so hard.
Oh, yeah.
Any of the things you can list. My 5 kids, they are incredible humans. It's not easy raising 5 children. That's not easy.
I'm trying to raise 3, and I'm halfway to where you are.
You started way too old.
Oh my goodness. It's kind of a trend now. I got a lot of friends in their 40s.
No, what's so funny?
Babies.
Going to San Francisco to see my son for his birthday. my oldest is 27, and we're walking around, and other people I can tell are my age. They're walking around with their toddlers, and I'm like, oh, it's just, I think Reading is a little different that way.
Yeah.
People start younger up
They
here.
do. Yep.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm having fun. It's the best thing I've ever done.
Oh yeah. I'm totally teasing you, by the way.
I know.
There's never a bad time.
But it is true though. Social media only shows one side of life. And I was in my men's group. I have a group just like you with guys, and I do all the things you do. And I think that we have alignment in so many areas. And we were sitting there the other night, and one of my best friends, Jason Valentin, is an emotional health coach and guru. He's one of the most profound guys. He's counseled, thousands of people, many people, high profile people through affairs, and he's incredible. There's nothing he hasn't seen. And we're sitting there, and he doesn't always make it to our group, but he's part of it. And one of our guys was sharing how, he's going through a really hard season with his marriage. And he was just talking about how he's learning to sit in his pain. He's learning to pick up the phone and call his friends. He's learning to journal, and he's doing all these healthy things. And yet it's not easy. And Jason looked at him. He said, well, that means that you've arrived. And I just thought that was so profound. I thought about it for so many days, because I think that, at least for me, that there's been this kind of ideal that I've thought that if I just do all these things, life will be easier. And it's like, no. I was talking to Rick Ruby about a month ago, and I said something like, I'm just doing this and this until it's easier. And he looked at me and said, hey, buddy, I'm just going to tell you something right now. This is a man who has $105 million. He said, it's never going to be easier.
No. Do you ever, I remember 6 years ago. So, it's funny. I don't know how many people know this. So, right after Leadership Reading, I had become close to Megan Dally. She had just decided to run for assembly. She won. And she comes to me, and I had just started in mortgage. I think it was in my 6th month. And she goes, I want you to come to work for me.
Oh, I remember that.
And I wanted it so bad. Because I love it's like, I would have been going out to our district. It's like a tear up. Like, I love our district. I love our people up here. And, I would have been representing people in our district with their problems and their, ideas, and bringing them to her and working with her on change for the North State. And like, that is exciting to me. And I felt firmly, that God said, no, you're supposed to stay her friend, after days of prayer. And the Bible, I kept turning to the stories where it said, and the king had a friend. Did you ever even know it said that sometimes? Sometimes it wasn't like about his cupbearer or his this or his that. He had a friend. And I was like, it was very clear. You're supposed to remain her friend, and you're supposed to remain in mortgage. But I remember during that time, and it was the right choice, and she needed just a friend. And we've remained that all this time. But, I remember during that time thinking, oh, this is all so hard. And I remember thinking, when I have this feeling of uncertainty, or what am I supposed to do? And God's working on me, and like, why does everything feel hard? Is always when I'm about to grow. And I watch for those moments now, because like, the quicker you can get to, oh, this is hard because something's coming. The more joyful it becomes, even though it's still hard. Right. But the quicker that you get to go, something's about to happen, I get to be expectant. I get to be excited. Like, he doesn't do bad for me any time, but like, ooh, I feel it. Okay. All right. What are you doing? And I think, even in the choices this week to come coach with you this, next week, I was like, oh, I'm in a really weird place from all this pruning and all this growth. I need to go be in a place and get coaching, and I need to go. And something you said about Jason, like you just said, he's a life coach and this is what he does. He's an expert at that. Why do we as mortgage professionals, or, people in any career, you become to a place in your career where people look to you as an expert, but guess what? You're not an expert at everything.
No.
I had one of my favorite coach one time on a coaching call try to give a fellow loan officer marriage advice. And I said, with all due respect, and this person was high above me, with all due respect, you're a lender and you're very good at it. And you can give that man that kind of coaching, but you're not an expert at everything. And
Oh,
and so like, that's like, to your question earlier, like, we're not an expert at everything.
Mm-mm.
And we don't have to be. And we can find the experts at the other things to help us.
Yeah.
And just because you've gotten to one place in one thing doesn't mean you get to say that you know it all to everyone, because we're all not going to have it all together.
No, and I think it's really a mark of maturity and security in who you are when you can walk in that place where you know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
With Jason specifically, like, he has spent his whole life changing people's lives in this counseling world.
Mm-hmm.
But in a lot of the areas that he has weakness, I'm helping him.
Right.
But I've been going all in, grinding in a business world, just completely ignoring my emotions. I didn't even know what they were for most of my life. And now I'm in this place with 3 little kids where it's like, dude, I got to figure this out if I want to stay married.
Mm-hmm.
And if I want to have great kids,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want to die of a heart attack. And God puts that guy in my life, moves him into my neighborhood. We start working out together every day. And I just hang on every word he says, because it's stuff I've never heard before.
Yeah.
You know, so it's really the beauty of community. And the way that I think we were designed to live is that we borrow from each other's strengths. And I'm just grateful I've become a lot more comfortable with that, where I'm so happy that I don't know a lot of things, because that means I still have a lot of things to learn. And that's always a good thing.
That's exciting, right?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
It's totally good. I want to go back to something you said, though. You talked about when you feel pain, certain times in your life where it feels like all the pressure is kind of converging, that you have recognized those as seasons where you're about to grow, break through, or God's taking you on a new journey, and you're going to have to surrender everything to him. And I'm very familiar with how that feels. Last year, I made a decision and it was very prayerful, and I had a lot of options. I had big checks that I could have taken with way bigger companies, and I decided to work with Rice and Mortgage One. And I remember when I made the decision, it was not 3 weeks later that my former employer came in and took all my people. And it was one of the most painful experiences I ever had. I did know that was a possibility. I did not know how hard it would be. And I'll never forget, I was sitting in my sauna at my house. It was about 5:30 in the morning, and I start reading Psalm 23. Or was it Proverbs 23? The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And I just started reading through it, and I just got to, he will lie me beside green pastures. He will make a table in the presence of my enemies. And then I got to the part where I said, I literally screamed it, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And it was like this revelation where I was connecting with, I only want to do what you want me to do. And right now it doesn't feel safe,
right?
But I'm going to give this entire life to you, and I'm going to trust you in these seasons. And man, I'm so grateful for those opportunities, because I feel like there's a piece of control and my own, plan for my life that I let go of. And there's a piece of freedom that we gain from those moments.
And both things were true. Both things were true. You were going through something hard.
Yeah.
But you had peace and you trusted him.
I did.
Right. And earlier this year, I was speaking in front of 500 people for Academy Mortgage. I felt honored. I was brand new in the company. Okay. And I remember the things that they wanted me to talk about. And I thought, wow, I'm up here on this stage and they want me to talk about these things. And I did still have a pretty good year in Redding, California. And
very good year.
Still making it in mortgage. And I thought, if they only knew, though, behind the scenes, a nonprofit that I helped start was merging in a manner that I didn't necessarily agree with, and I didn't have control over, even though I had started the nonprofit, right? And things sometimes grow to a point. Anyways, things were changing in that arena. My friend Megan had just had a stroke. And that was rough.
Yeah.
And there was just many, many things going on at home. And I think the only deal I had in escrow had fallen apart right before I walked on stage. And but both things were true.
Yeah.
Both things were true.
Yep.
I could definitely tell those people about my joy and my peace in it, and what brings me peace, and how I guard my heart in this industry, and how I still am making it through. And in the meantime, a lot of things could be falling apart behind the screen, right? But both were true.
Yeah.
And God turns it around when we trust him. He always does. But both are true. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good at the same time. So
no, but that's how you develop resilience, right? It's like you now have this bag of evidence that anytime you encounter hardship, you can just peek in there, and you can just point at this, this, and this, and then you can just see, from the front end looking back, how if that wouldn't have happened, these opportunities wouldn't come, that relationship wouldn't have happened, this decision wouldn't have had. I would, It's just like it's incredible. I mean, I know so many people that they lost everything through the housing crisis of 2008. And they've never been the same with money, and they're wealthy now because they lost everything. They now have a lot more.
But if they hadn't gone through that, they wouldn't have made the change.
Totally.
But you build your altars, right?
You do.
You build your altars. We have an envelope framed in our home, and it sits in the front of our home when you walk in, and it says to Porca and Leah, love your heavenly Father. And in '08. We almost lost our home, and we had lost our jobs, and we had lost a child, and we were sitting in our living room, and I'll never forget. We were sitting in our living room, and our front door was right by me, and you couldn't walk up to it without me seeing you through a window that was right behind me. And we're talking, and our kids are out playing, and I said, if we don't come up with about $1,000 by next week, I don't really know how we're going to make our bills right now. And it was our first year of marriage. We lost our jobs, lost a child, it was an interesting first year. My daughter Bella comes running through the front door, grabs something off the front door, and hands it to my husband. And we go, where did that come from? She goes, it was taped to the front door. And we go, but it wasn't an hour ago. We've been sitting here talking. You guys have been in and out. No, where did that come from? So it's this envelope. And I kid you not, it was like I knew in my heart before he even opened it.
You knew what it was.
Yeah, it was 10 $100 bills.
Yeah.
And to this day, we have no idea. And our life is in a totally different place now, but it is framed and it's in our house. And you build your altars. And you don't build altars as in to make gods out of false things or the wrong things, but you build them to remember. Because something you said earlier, when we're going through these things, I don't want to ever forget. I don't ever want to not be humble. I don't want to ever talk to one of my clients and act like $100 isn't a big deal.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it. I don't want to act like their goals or coming up with the money for the down payment or what the payment looks like monthly, or that the house they want to buy isn't as grand as I think it should. I never want that to be a conversation with me. I don't want to forget. And that's why you build altars, right? Yep. And to also remind yourself that he's always on to something greater.
Yeah, he is. I mean, going back to AA, I remember we started reading. I mean, I was a believer in Jesus, I still am, but I had to start with these little habits. You're a habit gal, so like back then,
yeah.
I mean, I've read the Bible and had a time of morning devotion until this year. I got out of the habit this year because it was a rough year, 20 years in a row, right? But I started with a 1 page out of this little devotional book early on because they're like, hey, we want to start getting, helping you connect with God and because you got to depend on him, and so I remember I was reading this passage and it was talking about how anytime you think that the well of your career has run dry, maybe it is that you're not making money anymore or you get laid off or whatever it is, your financial insecurity. Yeah. We've all had it and we're all going to have it. It doesn't mean that the source is dry. It just means that you're being led to a different channel. The source is abundant and it will never run out. And I truly believe that. Like in the beginning, it was faith. And I was like, this sounds good. I'm going to read it and name it and claim it and all that. But now that I know so much more about money and the financial system and people and belief system, I know that that's true. Like there is abundance. And that's one of the reasons I don't get hung up on competition like so many people do. Yeah. Because I just believe like the people we're supposed to work with, the people we're supposed to do life with, they're going to show up. And if we're willing to share and be generous, usually we're going to be more happy. But a lot of times your needs are always going to be taken care of. And
yeah, it's like manna. I think I was telling you last year when we chatted, I was like, third month of the year, things were still going okay, but it was hard. Last year was hard. And I remember one day God's like, this year you're going to trust me just like manna. You're not going to try to store up because it'll go bad, Leah.
Yep.
You've got to trust every day. I'm okay.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean we're not anxious in the meantime, like we trust, I don't know. I think that's the part I pray about with him all the time is like, I want to just trust, but I think he's teaching me, but you're in this human vessel.
It's both.
Like, it's both, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I've become so much more okay with my shortcomings and my character defects.
And the better you know him, the more you can go,
and my
I'm doing that
disobedience.
again.
I don't like it. I don't want to do it.
No.
It doesn't go well. But I also know, for me, like, I just believe we have an all-loving and powerful God who loves us more than we'll ever know. And even in our worst moments, like, he's taking that and doing something with it. And so and I think you carry that too, where you don't take yourself too serious. Like, I mean, it is what it is.
It is what it is. It is what it is.
That's my favorite saying. Right? It is what it is.
Somebody told me, oh gosh, somebody I used to work with at Hill Collision Center yesterday, because he's doing a VOE for me. He's like, yeah, what if the market crashes? You'll be, whatever. And I go, it's true. I go, that's okay. In the meantime, I've had good coaches that told me to pay my bills in advance and pay off my debt and do this and this. I'm like, this is kind of play money, not play money. I mean, it's real money, but this is kind of a crazy, awesome career. And if it ended tomorrow, I'd be grateful and I'd move on. I know how to work hard.
Yep,
I'll do what it takes. Like, whatever it takes. I think I tell you that story. Like, if we look across the street from our building, there's an office, and I cleaned the 9 toilets in that office for 20 years.
Yeah.
For 20 years, from the time I was a single mom through the beginning of my marriage and all the trials of 2008. And I just kept going. I cleaned that office every single weekend. We didn't take a weekend off for a vacation. I cleaned that office. And I think even into the start and like rise of this career, I had a really amazing coach, Mark Massa, go, you do what every weekend? And into 2021. And I'm like, oh, I do this. And he goes, you could give that job to someone else now. And it was like, oh, but I think part of me wanted to keep it to stay humble.
Yep.
To stay humble and to like keep feeling like a servant heart. And do you know that every weekend when I would do that, I would pray over that family. I would pray for their boys.
For their bottom? While you're cleaning the toilet?
Yes. Yeah, I pray for that. But I took it as like every act of work is worship.
Yeah.
Like everything we do is worship. Everything we do is worship.
It is.
The toilet, whatever it is worship. And so it was like, this is worship to me. And I'm grateful. I remember crying, like, I'm grateful. This job kept my house while I was a single mom. This job, I'm so grateful. And do you know, my daughter just went to work for that family. She now is actually working in the office. So it's a wild twist of fate, but it kept me humble. Like, it just, what if this career never works out, which is not the case, but it's just something I did.
No, you what you're describing is like you're aligned with your purpose, and you're not bound by what you do or what you have. And I just think that people like you end up really becoming successful, because like the way that I envision God in my very simple mind is that he's got all these gifts and he's just holding them, looking at us. And he's just like, whenever you put those things down, I'll give them to you, but you're not ready to hold them yet. And I think the way that you describe the way you live is like, I mean, it's like, that's called stewardship, and I think I have enough friends, and I've accomplished some great things with money that are wealthy, that I look how they live. Like a lot of my friends who are some of the wealthiest people in the country, the more money they have, the less they spend and the less they want. Rick Ruby's a great example of that.
That too.
I talked to Rick Ruby last week. He's got $110 million or something and $40 million in paid off real estate. Mm-hmm. He's living in a 1,700 square foot barn dominium on a little farm because he wanted to make his wife's dreams come true. So he bought a bunch of these little cows and goats and ducks, and he's posting these hilarious videos on Instagram. If you want to see something hilarious, go to Rick Ruby on Instagram. And while they're doing this, about 3 years ago, they bought a lot on Lake Norman, which is one of the most popular areas in South Carolina. All the NASCAR drivers and country singers live on this lake. He bought an island in the middle of it that's got a 360 view of the island, got a pretty good deal on it. Yeah. And he's just about to finish.
He got a good deal on an island.
He's just about to finish his $12 million house, or no, 12,000 square foot.
Okay.
12,000 square foot, $10 million house. And he's talking to me. He's like, my wife wants me to sell it. She's never been happier. I said, are you going to do it? Mm-hmm. He said, I might. Mm-hmm. He said, Chris, I got to tell you, man, I am so happy shoveling cow poop on the weekends and pushing a tractor around and playing with these animals and seeing my wife happy. He's like, I might sell it. I got a realtor coming to look at it and see what it's worth. And it's like, I hear these kind of stories, and by the way,
that's why I wanted to move to
the checks that he's writing right now to being generous His generosity is
How much
increasing.
joy would that bring you?
He's
going to change.
He's a different person,
but my
man.
family didn't believe me that I wanted to move to the burning house, like my little cabin I just sold. I would go live there and fall trees and happily do burn piles and nothing else all day. Happily. I totally get what Rick's saying. Yeah. There's a joy to the more simple things in life. I remember hearing, who's the shark? Damon. He spoke at one of my first conventions as a lender, multi-millionaire, right? Mm-hmm. And he's like, that's not where the joy is. And I remember thinking, well, let me have a little bit and make sure, you think it.
That right? Sounds great, but I'm going to test it to make sure.
Let me check.
Yeah,
I could like,
we're still like sure? Our kids right now, right?
Right. And then I have one of my favorite realtors that we talk about it all the time. My kids' favorite memories from growing up is, hey mom, remember when we took all the quarters from my piggy bank and we went to McDonald's? Hey mom, remember our camping trips? Hey mom, remember?
I know.
It's not anything outrageous.
No.
That's not the joy.
No, and I think that, in closing, let's kind of land there because, right now it's 2024. The president of Redfin just said this is unlike any housing market he's ever seen in his life. And it's a very different time. People ask me all the time, what's the housing market like? I'm like, it's interesting because it is. Like there's winners and losers so and it's a very different time. And it's like everyone wants to put so much emphasis on the presidential election. And I just think that what you just said for me, I think is actually the answer is, what am I doing to change myself? Mm-hmm. What am I doing to become less tied to the world, more generous, more free, more healed,
more peaceful,
more connected to people, dealing with my pain in healthy ways? Because I happen to know, because of the worlds I run in, there's a lot of people that are dealing with substance abuse right now, alcoholism, having affairs because they're jacked up. They have all the pressure of the world and they don't know what to do. And so, let's just, for a second here, I want to talk about our housing market because I think people are starting to realize that the middle class is shrinking. And the experiment that we've had in this country for a long time, that's been a beautiful thing. We don't know if it's ever going to be the way it was again. And it sure as heck doesn't feel like it's going back. Like we're going to have some presidential election and some policy change that's all of a sudden going to bring inflation down, equalize wages, including the 13 million people that just crossed the border, make things easier, bring healthcare back into alignment. And we're all going to have this great life. Like, I don't know anyone that actually thinks that's going to happen right now. And so what are some things that you're telling your home buyers they're middle class, they realize rents are going up, they kind of know that prices didn't go down with rates going up, they might not. What are some of the things you're sharing with them right now to help them make a good decision in a time where it feels so risky?
Right. I think, and I don't know if it's the right way to look at it, but it's the way I look at it. I have a lot of people ask me like, oh, the markets and the this and the that, the 3,000 foot view, right? Kind of even like what you just said, like how's this going to come together? And I tell people often that part's not my job. There's experts at our company who watch the market and they tell me, and I let them do that. My job is you, the person sitting in front of me.
Yep.
And my job is you telling me your story. If anyone calls me, the first thing I say is, hey, I'm Leah. Tell me your story. That is literally like, tell me your story. What are we doing? I do that too. How's your life? Tell me what we're doing. And so my job is them and to ask them what payment fits you, what fits your lifestyle, what are your kids doing? Do we have a bunch of sports going on? Where do we need to be? Like just all those little tiny things. And the truth is, if we get you into a house, your payment's not going to go up because the landlord said so. There are some factors why it could go up, right? Insurance, different things, but those are out of our control. But I think the main thing is to control what you can control and to know that I can control that this is my home and this is where the payment's going to stay. And the truth is they're like, oh, and we'll just refi. I'm not going to put your hopes in that. We've been saying that hoping that for a year and a half, right? So I'm not going to put your hopes in that. I'm going to put your hopes in what I know to be true. What I know to be true is I can lock you here. I can get you this payment. What you do for a living means that you can make it and still have a life with your family if you do that. I do know that historically, no matter what's going on, all these different things, you're going to build equity. You're going to have a pride of ownership, and that brings a lot of other wonderful things, and we know that. I mean, my job is that. My job is you and to know what's going on with you. It's why I have clients walk in who was a single woman when I met her. Then we did the next house when she got married. And this week they walked in 4 years later and we have baby in tow. and that's why, because they know that I want to know what is good for them.
Yeah.
Not all these other things. What brings you peace? What is going to make you want to walk into that home and be okay every day? So I guess that's my main thing, is my job is you. And I can try to find out some big answers, but like you said, whichever president is going to be up there, my God's still on the throne.
Yep.
Anyways, right? But beyond that, if they're not a believer,
you can't
if someone's
that.
not a believer, I can't control all that.
Yep.
I can't control if you're going to get to refi. I can't control. And that's the thing. Like, we're in an industry, Chris, where I don't know about you, but there's nights sometimes where I'm like, should we lock them today? Should we lock them tomorrow? And I can't control what the market's going to do. And so I got to control the things I can.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I try to tell my clients too, my job is to educate you and let you decide too. Because someday I don't want you to come back and go, you chose this part for us. Nope. You can choose. Here's your options. You choose. You tell me. You get in the driver's seat. I'm going to educate you enough to be in the driver's seat of your life and what you want to do.
Yeah. I think a good advisor has two things. They give excellent information with really authentic connection. Because there's a lot of people that have one or the other, but in our field, you got to have both. I was on a coaching call yesterday, and I was subbing for another call, and this loan officer who's new in our coaching program that you've been a part of for years. And he said, his question in the end was, how do I separate myself from being a commodity? And I said to him, well, listen, the first thing is you got to realize that you're not one. And that your mortgage is not a commodity either. I said, I know that there's industry people that label it that, but stop listening to that. I said, you are a personal brand, and the product that you have is one of the most powerful financial tools that have ever existed to create wealth for the middle class ever in history. I was like, and until you believe that, you're going to act like a commodity. And, Leah, I just want to tell you, like, you are a personal brand, and you have it all in this industry. And that's why I love this conversation. I think people are going to get a lot out of it. You put your heart and soul into your business. And the last thing I'll say is this. I told him, I said, a lot of people have a misconception of what a good mortgage lender is. They don't really understand. And I will just tell you that professional mortgage lenders like yourself and many in our group, they are the most savvy, incredible resources and advisors that you will ever meet, and that could be literally compared to anyone in any other financial services field.
I agree.
I have a guy I coach who has $10 million in cash. He's got $10 million in paid off real estate. He wears a JCPenney shirt every day. And I will tell you, if I need financial advice or real estate advice, I'm going to that guy. And I think that's something that a lot of consumers don't actually understand when they think about going to Rocket Mortgage or some online company versus coming to someone like you or me. Is they don't understand that, like, when you have a relationship with someone who has created wealth and navigated this and knows all the tricks and hacks for you to create wealth for your family, that relationship is so much more valuable than saving 1/8% on your interest rate.
Oh my gosh.
And lucky for you and I, we live in a community, we have enough clients, and we have a lot of people that know that about us. And I just want to tell you, I appreciate you, and I'm so grateful that we got to hang out today.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a lot of relational equity in our area. I would say to your person you're coaching, if you don't think you're a commodity, what do you need to grow into believe that you're a commodity?
It was a longer conversation. We definitely talked about that. It was a belief system.
Because you're right about mortgage lenders. We have to be, because of my little tie into politics, I've come to like kind of watch both worlds. There's a side of politicians that has to campaign and kiss babies and get people to vote for them. There's a side who has to go onto the assembly or Senate floor and lobby and be strong and not kid around and know what's good for their people and represent them. And I feel like mortgage is one of the businesses where we have to do the same thing, right, Chris? Like there's a lot of like, I think people think we're very like showy and like we have to get people to use us. I mean, that's true. But the truth is, if at the end of the day, if they come in and I do a horrible job and I'm not on the floor and know what I'm doing and I'm technically good at my job, then I've then I haven't done them full
You're not
service.
going to last. Yeah.
Right. So it's like we are interesting because we have to do both.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It's a different thing.
Well, if you liked this episode, please make sure you like, subscribe, and comment or ask any questions. If you're a mortgage lender or realtor and you heard about this coaching program I always talk about, it's called The Core, Creating Millionaires since 2001. We're going to have an event next week. It's sold out, but there's other ones coming up. Very rare place where you can hang out with a bunch of people who will show you everything in their life, tell you about all the good, the bad, and the ugly. 50 millionaires at tables working with you from 7 a.m. till midnight, teaching you how they're winning in this market. If you're someone who wants to buy a house or you have questions about anything we talked about, anything at all, please make sure you ask questions. We will reply to them. So appreciative of you. Hope you have a great weekend.